area in here. So we've got, our basic tools here. We've got our monster chop saw where we've been cutting and then I didn't get to use this toy back here this summer, but this is the plasma cutter. So that shoots out a super hot jet of ions and cuts through metal. Handy thing to have if you need it. Another saw.
When do you think the world's going to end?
I don't think it's going to end. I think it's going to continue to change, and sometimes change in ways we don't want. And so we've got to think ahead about how to avert those and get us on the right path.
How much of a hole are we in?
I think it's a pretty bad situation, worse than people believe. So one of the techniques we can use is to scale things down. You don't need to have a massive, gigantic factory that spews all this pollution into the air. You can have these small-scale, sustainable outfits selectively saying, well, I'm only going to use this because it lowers the carbon footprint. I'm only going to use that source because I know if I trace back through the supply chain, that comes from a sustainable source.
Welcome to the Simple Podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I have my brother Muhammad and Noah with me today, and we are in Michigan, U of M, right? What's the name of this college campus again?
University of Michigan, Ann Arbor.
Wait, what's the? It's a different campus though, right?
Yeah, the North Campus.
Yeah, right. It's the North Campus because I remember when I was here, I would always stay on Central Campus, and this felt like an hour to get to. But how long does it usually take to get here from Central Campus?
Well, the blue buses to take you back and forth, so it's about like 10-minute, 15-minute drive on the blue bus.
Okay.
It's almost about 10, 15 minutes.
All right. Okay. How we doing today? How y'all feeling?
Feeling kind of good, a little nervous.
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm chilling, man. I'm just happy to be with you all today. Got my brother Ron in the background. You probably can't see him, but we are, at his laboratory or his field. This is for a project you all are doing. What is the name of the project?
It's called African Futurist Greenhouse.
All right, African Futurist Greenhouse, and just kind of talk about what was the motivation behind the project, starting with Noah, and why is this work important?
Well, the whole purpose of the project was to bring African traditions to the architecture. So pretty much what we wanted to do was use the scaling geometry found in African sculptures, jewelry, and traditional homes, and apply it to a greenhouse, while also applying different African things found in traditional homes. So for instance, if you can look on this side, on the inside curve, we plan to install a rain catchment system which is found in African homes. So that way it reduces the carbon footprint. Thank you. On this inside curve, as it comes along, we're going to have another side to it. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a rain catchment system in the center. That way we can collect rainwater, that way we can just water the plants inside too. And we also plan to introduce some solar panels.
Okay.
That way we can reduce the carbon footprint of the greenhouse. That way it's actually a greenhouse.
Wow, man, snap it up. You spoke a lot of just STEM and a lot of I felt like culture with just talking about the various shapes and sizes. And one thing I know about Ron, and I'm gonna get to Muhammad, is that he's not about just being linear, right? It's not about just extraction, right? It's like a recursive thing. Whatever I produce, it needs to go somewhere else, then go somewhere else, then come right back, right? And so it's a revolutionary thing, but it's also generative for not only me and the world. So just Muhammad, just being around Ron and doing this project, why is this work important for you?
So basically, the purpose of this project is to attract the Detroit community toward their cultures and traditionals, and we basically have to use the traditional African indigenous ways and create a greenhouse which will have a combination of culture as well as technology. So for that sake, we have worked on this project which we call African Futurist Greenhouse, and the science behind using this like curve in this greenhouse is
Mm-hmm.
to one, collect the rain catchment water system, and second is to match the shape of the greenhouse with the African old homes and
Mm-hmm.
jewelries and sculptures. Yeah.
No, and that's the key, right? And that's
So,
my next question is just this type of work is revolutionary, right? Not too many people do the work that you all do, and they call it aspirational, right? You got the Dreamville, thing on, right? You're dreaming, and you're talking about not only creating something that is scientific, but it also has cultural elements to it, right? We want to see ourselves in the architecture. That makes sense, right? We want to see our culture in the architecture. So I'm just curious to know, starting with Noah, just like how important is to see yourself in the stuff you make.
I think it's very important. Being a Detroit native, looking at this is gonna go in Detroit. You walk around the city, you don't see much. So to
Mm.
see this and be like, wow, that's cool. Like I see that this is African influence with it. Versus just a regular rectangular or box shaped building.
Mm.
It's kind of boring. So I think it's very important. 'Cause I think people will see it and they're gonna be like, wow, like okay, the city's on a rise. I can see myself into it. Dang, maybe I want to get into it. Get people interested.
So the thing that I liked about this project was to create a bees in this greenhouse,
Mm-hmm.
which will help to not just to Detroit community to come to the museum and enjoy the greenhouse moment.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and we need more movements like that. We not only need greenhouses, but we also want it. We want to look good. We want to look cool. We wanted to look us. And I really appreciate you all. Like, what's the tip would you give the teachers?
Try to relate to your students.
Mm.
At some point you were in their seats. You were thinking the same thing. Like, dang, you step into a class and you're like, wow, I have to learn all this information, or it has some complex title. Try to break it down for them, step by step. Move by move, build it up.
So if there anything that could easily relate to our culture, that's easily for students to understand, and most students interest in that and find it interesting. So yeah,
And I'm just curious to know because you're from Pakistan, correct?
yeah, I'm
So
from Pakistan.
right, and you've had different teachings. So how would you compare the pedagogy there to here?
So the education system is like totally different because first, so in Pakistan we mostly dependent on reading books most of the time
Mm-hmm.
and working on the notebook instead of laptops and stuff. So laptops mostly doesn't exist in
Mm.
most in the rural areas, most specifically rural education system. So where I belong.
Welcome to the Teach Simple Podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I got my brother, Dr. Ron Eglash, with me. We're at U of M North Campus, and I'm just really excited to have you here, man. How you doing today?
good, good. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, this is like, an interview that I've been really trying to have with you for a while, and I'm just really blessed that you were able to work with me in my school with implementing the culturally situated design tools and them taking on the Adinkra lessons. And I actually want to, really talk to you more about how can I turn that into a course and just, push out that because that work is very like just revolutionary. So just real quickly, what does it feel like to be in revolutionary work?
I'll let you know when it happens.
Absolutely right. Yeah, but you, Ron, you are I won't say the father of fractals, but you are pretty much a pioneer in that field. You wrote a book on it. You've been all over Africa. You worked with Samuel L. Jackson. You were a father. You're an ethnomathematician. But just in one sentence, how would you define Ron Eglash?
Just a dude trying to, do good things.
and you really, I got like honestly, because I remember the first time I met you, I started talking about just like because I'm got a science background, and a lot of my research has been a lot of my um, things I like to read as respect to science and culture is just how does science not only connect to the economy, but also connect to the spirit of people, right?
Yeah.
Connect to your everyday lives. And I remember saying that to you, and you said, "Man, I got to log off before I keep from crying." And I was like, "Oh my God!" Like I said something that made this dude that literally does this for a living, right? And so just like real quickly, man, you know what do you do? And why is it important? And what is a recursive economy?
Yeah, what you said really got to the heart of the matter. So let me start with the Dinkra. So I've got this little ink on it. You can, yeah, you can go ahead and feel that, and you can feel it, right? It's not just printed on there. There's this goopy ink that they stamp it on with, and I happen to have one of the stamps here. So this is Funtun Funafu.
Yep.
It's two crocodiles that share the same stomach. So by feeding you, I feed myself.
Right.
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 And this one is Sankofa. You can always go back to recover a forgotten tradition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you'll notice that logarithmic spiral in there, the growing spiral, the curves of life. And you'll see that over and over again in these Adinkra stamps. The reason is because the Ghanaians who developed Adinkra were referencing things in the natural world, the biological world. And they caught on to the idea that nature has this special way of scaling things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a recursive way of scaling things. It's a nonlinear way of scaling things, right? So it's not just accretion by 1 cube, 2 cubes, 3 cubes.
Yeah.
Right. It's the organic growth pattern, and you can see that really easily in something like a ram's horn. And this is actually the source of one of the Adinkra symbols. So when you see these curves in Adinkra, it's often two rams butting heads.
Yes.
Right. So when you look at those nonlinear scaling shapes, you're seeing something that has a lot of functionality to it.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we live in architecture that's all about 90-degree angles and boxes.
Yeah.
And so we tend not to produce shapes like this. And as a result, we don't get to explore what those engineering qualities are. So by basing something on these indigenous designs, it's not only referencing the cultural heritage,
Mm-hmm.
It's also opening up the possibilities for science and technology to explore more sustainable pathways, more just, equitable pathways, right? More democratic ways of doing things. So if you look at the curve here in this horn, you'll recognize that in the architecture of our greenhouse that's right behind me. That's the African Futurist greenhouse. So one of the things I was doing was just thinking about how to keep this thing cool. We're getting worse and worse with global warming. We're getting hotter and hotter summers. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. If I've got this scaling shape in here, the hot air is always going to go towards the center. So unlike a linear greenhouse that has this dead space, this thing's going to create its own path, right, for that air to flow. So just the fact that you're starting to use these very unconventional, nonlinear African indigenous forms opens up these new possibilities for exploration.
But I started with revolutionary because honestly, before meeting you, connecting science and culture, it's hard to find literature on it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's hard to find academic. It's just hard to find it, and it almost feels like they're separate entities, right? But everything you talk about is them being together. And you talked about a book called The Wealth of a Nation.
Yeah, Adam Smith.
Yeah. So talk about that book and kind of like this, just this, this polarizing push of extraction economies and extracting where we're not, allowing nature to self-organize, and we learn and we take from that and use it towards us. Because it seems like we're in an extraction economy than an actual, recursive economy. So go ahead. Yeah. So talk about the book and how do we get to this?
Yeah. So this is sort of the Bible of capitalism, right?
Wow.
Adam Smith, easy date to remember, 1776 is when he publishes this. So he says, look, if you want an economy that grows, you've got to get more and more value out of things, whether that's by paying workers as little as possible, or by pulling as much as you can out of the soil, whatever it takes to optimize your ability to extract value. That's the course you need to be on in order to have the wealth of nations. So once you start looking at your economy that way, it becomes natural to start using science and technology that way. And so what begins as a physics concept, like the concept of efficiency, you would define that as maximizing the amount of work per energy input.